And it's with enormous pleasure that I introduce a good friend, a trusted colleague of many decades, Dr. Alexandra Munroe. You know, whenever you think about the word game changer and you say, yeah, you know, we use it, but Alexandra is actually, she embodies that word in almost everything she does. And the reason is that is because of her ferocious intellectual capacity and an absolute determination to get things done from the concept to the detail. And it doesn't happen that often for most of us. And I don't know quite where to begin, because the truth of the matter is that often people have said she's a curator par excellence. Indeed she is. Ferocious intellect. Indeed she has that. And she has 40 exhibitions to her name and more and counting. And if I stayed here, I think you wouldn't be able to get your dinner. And we wouldn't be able to hear Alexandra. So what I want to do is just give you 3 examples that for me really stand out what Alexandra is about. She sort of burst onto the scene, as it were, in 1994 with Scream Against the Sky, this amazing exhibition of post-war Japanese art from 1945. And I say she burst onto the scene because most of us who actually knew her, we knew that she already was an independent curator. She had done many other shows. But within the mainstream contemporary art world, they had not yet met Alexandra. And once they met, they could never stand away. And indeed, from there, it is climbing more and more accomplishments and amazing, amazing projects. The other one that I want to really point out is that one of the reasons why Stream Against the Sky was such an important exhibition is because for those of us who had studied Asian art for a long time, we often felt that in the contemporary world, people were thinking about contemporary Asian art, but they really didn't know Asia. Alexandra, why that exhibition was so successful and so important is because of her deep, deep knowledge and commitment and understanding of Japan, past and present. And it's that idea of the past and present that came in handy when she became the director of the Japan Society Gallery, where she had actually grown up before that time under Rand Castile. And she did a show that all of us in the Asian art thought, you know, yes, we know something about the Korean connection to early Buddhist art, but nobody thought that we could bring it together. And only Alexandra Munroe could actually get that done as a diplomatic feat that was almost unthinkable. And that was another very important exhibition, and the exhibition that actually to this day, we wonder whether, in fact, it can be ever done again. And that was Transmitting the Forms of Divinity, Early Buddhist Art from Korea and Japan. Then from Japan Society, Alexandra moves to the Guggenheim Museum, where she had done the first exhibition of Scream Against the Sky. And now she expanded her aperture to include China, all of Asia, and ultimately the whole world. She was going to do the whole world. And that is our Alexandra Munroe. A notable example of her interest in deep exploration of big questions is her groundbreaking exhibition, The Third Mind, American Artists Contemplate Asia, 1860 to 1989. Now again, for too long in the mainstream American art world, everybody always talked about the Western influence on Asia. And most of us thought, you know, this is not right. But not that everybody has the guts to actually take on that idea. And then she comes up with this incredible exhibition that was actually about how American artists were both inspired by and in conversation with Asian art that changed people's perception of how we think about Asia, Asianness, and Asian art. And from there on, In fact, she always is about turning an idea on its head and look at it from another side. There's a kind of a kaleidoscope way of looking at an issue, and they're always big issues. So you always say, how do you do that? And I think that at the Guggenheim, at not just being a senior curator at large now, but also senior curator for Asian art, she's also been involved with the Guggenheim Abu Dhabi project, where she's worked with lots of colleagues, but to really kind of push hard on how do we think about globality of art that is not simply about one perspective or the other, but to bring multiple perspectives to bear in terms of building a collection that I have to say, with all my Guggenheim colleagues here, it's going to blow your mind. And that is the case. It's clear that Alexandra always asks bold questions and goes about understanding them with scholarly precision. For myself, as a former dancer turned art historian and an institution leader, people would often ask me about my theory of change. And I said, well, as a dancer, my model is Mikhail Baryshnikov. To soar like an elegant bird and to come down in a split second like a solid rock. To have the macro and the micro come together, the vision of an idea, and to execute with scholarly precision. I would say that that makes Alexandra Munroe, who is truly the Mikhail Baryshnikov of our field. So there you go. That's how I've decided that. From now on, Misha, right there. So, dear Alexandra, I couldn't be more thrilled to welcome you to the stage.
Oh my God, that was outrageous.
Well, so are you. So there you go.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Vishaka. Oh my goodness gracious. Well, I think I'll sit down now. Vishaka, stay here, stay here, stay here. That was extraordinary. For someone to be called to have a ferocious intellect by the Empress of Ferocious Intellect is something truly, truly moving. I never thought. You know, my husband is in London tonight, but I feel it's okay because I am surrounded by family. Almost everyone in this room has played a role in the story that Vishaka has just set forth for us from the 80s when we first met right through to decades later where we stand here. Whatever honor we are celebrating here tonight is really because of our intellectual camaraderie over these 35 years, some of it starting right here in this room with your early seminars on what is modern Asian art, and I should say our mutually brave collaborations that have spanned our respective tenures at Asia Society, Japan Society, Columbia, Guggenheim, and Guggenheim Abu Dhabi, where Vishaka plays a very important advisory role for us as we are building this extraordinary museum. As Yoko Ono says, a dream you dream alone is just a dream, but a dream you dream together is a reality. So we have come a long way. Working with so many curators and scholars and colleagues who are in this room and encouraged by venture philanthropists like Jack Wadsworth, who wishes he could be with us tonight, and the enlightened and much beloved Cynthia Polsky. Many of us in this room and in this building have fought to expand the programming, indeed, I would say the consciousness and the orientation of our academies and the museums, with Asia as the orientation point. No longer a periphery, no longer an imagination, no longer something that is not actually vital and present and relevant to not just over there, but to our lives in this country today and in the future. I share a DNA with John D. Rockefeller's Asia Society. As Vishaka mentioned, I worked at Japan Society twice. Yoko Shioya, artistic director of Japan Society, is here with us tonight. As you recall, he resuscitated Japan Society after the war when it had been relegated to a kind of license in a post office box on 47th Street, and was its chair for 27 years and inspired on the model of Japan Society, which had been founded in 1907, created the Asia Society, and worked with both institutions until his death. JDR III's institutions, I think, but shaped both of our ambitions. It taught me how to make work that mattered, instilled a conviction, as you said earlier, Vishaka, that the arts are not a separate phenomenon for appreciation, but they are rather essential to a wider understanding of any region's history, politics, economy, and society, including our own. And they are essential to inspire a commons of cultural intelligence. So I'd say my exhibitions and writings have been influenced very much by this holistic approach that defines Asia Society's founding mission and which President Kang is taking forward. I'm so grateful to you, President Kang, and the arts and culture leaders at Asia Society for naming the recipient. I'm so honored to be sharing it with Shireen and Yang Fudong and Huang Ro, such brilliant artists and composers. Congratulations to all of you. Last week, I attended an event here to mark the publication of an extraordinary anthology put together by Tina Kim of letters between the peripatetic Korean artist Liu Fan and 3 of his contemporaries. At the dinner gathering that followed, Lee said, "Art is a power with no power." More than any other form of human endeavor, art preserves the worldviews and expresses the intelligence of a people. Art teaches us how to see, how to think about reality, change, technology, ecology, war, the soul, the afterlife, death, spirituality. And they compel us to imagine other worlds, future worlds, and inner worlds. This is the power of art. But without the power of a platform like the Asia Society and the Guggenheim and the Met, which is here well represented, all dearly beloved institutions of Cynthia's, by the way, the power of art has no way to touch the people and no way to affect that necessary change. In these precarious times, it is more urgent than ever that we support these museums and platforms that offer a studio for our artists and a beacon for our societies. This is our collective threshold. And as my friend Alan Flexer says, this is our promise. Thank you very much. Congratulations to all of you. And thank you, Asia Society, and thank you, Vishaka.